From the first prophecy, Father spoke to Adam and Eve in the garden after the fall, and then to all the prophets Father has raised up and spoken through, which have revealed the events Father would bring to pass concerning mankind. Father has been faithful to keep his promise he spoke through Amos 3:7, to do nothing unless he reveals his secrets to his prophets. For thousands of years, prophets have prophesied. Even Abraham, the prophecies came as both promised blessings as well as judgments he would levy upon his descendants, that they would be enslaved in Egypt for 400 years. Then, speaking through Moses, how the Israelites would forsake the Torah and be driven out of the covenant promised land. Speaking to Ezekiel, Daniel, Jeremiah, Isaiah, and others, Father has been faithful to give his covenant children a roadmap of prophecy, not only about the first coming to the second coming and the millennial kingdom, but his judgments as well. Remember, Zephaniah 1:12 through 13, anyone thinking that Yahuwah will do nothing good or bad was set aside for destruction. No one can convince me that for the last 1900 years there has been a void in which no prophecy has been given or fulfilled to both encourage and direct what has been unfolding concerning Father's called elect, those who keep his Torah and have overcome even to the giving of their blood as martyrs. This is exactly why the prophecies were given to John at the time they were given to him as an intricate guideline for Father's faithful remnant, the elect who keep his Torah and cannot be deceived. Now, continuing on with the opening judgment of the third seal in Revelation 6:5. When he opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, "Come and see." So I looked, and behold, a black horse, and he who sat on it had a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four living creatures saying, "A measure of wheat for a denarius, and 3 measures of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil or the wine." This time period in Roman history was marked by hyperinflation, oppressive taxation, land confiscation, and looting by the armies of Rome. And because of the civil unrest and inner wars of Rome, the people began to suffer economically as their empire began the next phase of the monetary decline and inflation, which overlapped during the period of the time of the red horse. The black horse carries measuring scales, and because of this, we can pinpoint the exact time this took place, because during the reign of Alexander Severus, the currency in use was still the denarius, and the exact price for the weight of 3 measures of oil or the weight of 1 measure of wheat between 222 and 235 AD was 1 denarius. The economic oppression of Rome was from approximately 218 to 284 AD. Laws taxing the land were based on productivity and led landowners to avoid taxes by destroying their crops, by burning them, to avoid taxation. So Rome responded with an edict against destroying the olive trees or the grapevines, fulfilling the second part of the prophecy, "Do not harm the oil or the wine." Can you see how perfect the prophecy of the black horse fits in this exact time in Roman history? During the time of the black horse and rider in the 3rd century, Caracalla and Geta shared the throne after the death of their father, Septimus. Caracalla treacherously murdered his brother Geta in their mother's arms and then went mad. It's estimated he killed over 20,000 people he feared who may have sided against him. I mention this because it was during Caracalla's imperiorship that the national treasury, what was left of it, was drained with his outlandish living. And this was the reason he extended and doubled the taxes of Rome. He brutally extracted assessments against the farmers, which caused the depression of the output of grain, oil, and wine. Prices soared and scarcity prevailed. And then the 4th seal was opened, and the pale horse and rider, judgment, rode in Revelation 6:7. which says, "When he opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth living creature saying, 'Come and see.' So I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and the name of him who sat on it was Death, and the grave followed him. And power was given to them over a fourth of the earth, to kill with the sword, with hunger, with death, and by the beast of the earth." During this time, in the latter part of the 3rd century, as the pale horse and rider's judgment came upon Rome, it actually overlapped and ran congruently with both the black horse and red horse judgments, for war, economic ruin, famine, and death was everywhere, and Rome's enemies took advantage of their demise. During Decius' 2nd year as emperor, history records a disastrous plague ravaged the earth for almost 20 years. Killing millions. Now, with civil war and revolution, economic and agricultural ruin, heavy taxes and poverty, the next phase is the complete breakdown of the Roman society. Famine and disease swept the empire, and barbarians on Rome's borders pressed in from all sides, raping and pillaging. There is even an account of the Nazarenes being accused of being responsible for the great increase of attacks upon the population by wild beasts, and thus their persecution knew no end. Gibbons, as quoted by Barnes, estimated that up to 5,000 people a day were dying from sword or famine in the city of Rome alone between 248 and 296 AD. It is estimated that over 1/4 of the population of the Roman Empire was swept away in these years, thus fulfilling the pale horse prophecy perfectly. Historians Eusebius stated that death waged a desolate war with famine and pestilence. Men wasted away to mere skeletons. They fell down in the streets. Some were already food for dogs. It's interesting to note the exact way Rome persecuted the Nazarenes was the exact way Father judged Rome. Tit for tat, equal retribution. And that is the same way he works today, with both individual judgment as well as judgment upon the nations. Just when many Nazarenes must have thought persecution from Rome could not get any worse, a new emperor by the name of Diocletian became emperor in 285 AD after defeating Emperor Quirinius in a battle in the Margus River Valley, which is in present-day Serbia. Diocletian radically changed the rule of the empire, dividing it between 4 rulers. Under his tetrarchy, or rule of 4, each emperor would rule over a quarter division of the Roman Empire. He separated and enlarged the empire's civil services and established the largest and most bureaucratic government in the history of the pagan Roman Empire. He also enlarged the military, which allowed Rome to secure the empire's borders and purge it of many barbarian threats for a time. He successfully conquered Samaria, Carpi, Egypt, and Persia. During his reign, at the turn of the 4th century, Diocletian launched the 10th and most bitter persecution against the Nazarenes. And this is the exact subject of the 5th seal in Revelation 6:9, which states, "When he opened the 5th seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain for the word of Elohim and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Yahuwah, holy and true, until you judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell on the earth? And there was given to each of them a white robe, and they were told that they should rest for a season until the number of their fellow servants and their brethren, who were to be killed even as they had been, would be completed also." The persecution against the first group of Nazarenes lasted for centuries, whose souls and blood was crying out from under the altar for vengeance. This second group, which the prophecy speaks of, are future Nazarenes, believed to be in the millions of apostolic believers who would be persecuted by the coming future formation of the Babylonian harlot religious system, the Roman Catholic Church, during the Inquisition, which would last for over 1,200 years. Diocletian required the title Dominus et Deus, meaning Lord and God. The fifth seal is more of an event in time, testifying the final upheaval of persecution against the Nazarenes prior to pagan Rome's final judgment. And it is no doubt that the Nazarenes must have testified to their Roman persecutors as they were martyred for their belief in the one true faith, that Elohim would vindicate their blood by judging Rome and its rulers. Thus, this must have stuck in the forefront of the minds of all those who were responsible for their bloody deaths, as we shall soon see. Diocletian and his rulers persecuted the Nazarenes mercilessly, and in spite of the estimated millions of apostolic Torah-observant Nazarenes that were martyred during this time, historian Hopkins estimates that the Nazarene community actually grew in size from a population of approximately a little over 1 million in 250 A.D., to a population exceeding well over 6 million by the turn of the 4th century, making up about 10% of the empire's total population. Father was faithful to pour out his Spirit during this time of great tribulation, so that many would repent due to Rome's judgments and come into the one true apostolic faith and belief of Yeshua the Messiah. When Diocletian came to power, he launched a new campaign to eradicate off the face of the earth any faith made up of Jews or Gentiles that refused to worship and pay homage to Rome's pagan gods. Finally, the rulers of Italy cried out to Constantine to save the empire from the tyranny and misrule. Judgment finally came in 312 A.D. by Constantine's armies. The pagans thought it was the end of the world. With that said, let us continue reading in Revelation 6:12. I looked when he opened the sixth seal, and behold, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became like blood, and the stars of heaven fell to earth, as a fig tree drops its late figs when it is shaken mightily by the wind. Then the sky receded as a scroll when it is rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved out of its place. And the kings of the earth, the great men, the rich men, the commanders, the mighty men, every slave and every free man, hid themselves in the caves and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, Fall on us, and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath has come, and who is able to stand? Father knew that the enemy would get their hands on this book and take the code words literally, and therefore completely miss the prophetic meaning and timeline, and consequently be led further astray. This is exactly how the harlot beast system has interpreted Revelation. Point being, any astute Torah-observant teacher of that day would have known the proper interpretation of these code words. So when the messenger used these symbolisms or metaphors in this verse, what he was describing was the judgment and downfall of the entire government and rulers of the pagan Roman Empire. The sun, moon, and stars and sky referred to governing rulers, both small and great in authority, all of them that ruled the earth. And the mountains and islands represent various sizes of kingdoms or governments, from large to small. Hosea 10:8 used the exact same code words when predicting the judgment of the northern kingdom of Israel, when he prophesied and said, And they shall say to the mountains, Cover us, and to the hills, Fall on us. Ezekiel used the same symbolism also when foretelling the downfall of Pharaoh and the government of Egypt. In 32, verse 7 and 8 states, And when I shall put thee out, I will cover the heaven, and make the stars therefore dark. I will cover the sun with a cloud, and the moon shall not give her light. All the bright lights of heaven will I make dark over thee, and set darkness upon your lands, saith Yahuwah your Elohim. The earthquake which shook the mountains and islands out of place was not literal, but code words for the devastating collapse and destruction of Rome's large and small governing political, social, religious, and military powers and authorities, who also worshipped the sun, moon, and stars. They were completely overthrown. During the persecution, both Diocletian and Maximian struck medals depicting the pagan gods Jupiter and Hercules destroying the Nazarenes. Is it any wonder why code words had to be used? After all, the Nazarenes were in enough trouble with Rome as it was. But had the prophecy spoken specifically about the fall of the Roman Empire, the consequences would have been even more disastrous. The overthrow, therefore, symbolized the casting down of planetary forces, which were the objects of pagan worship and idolatry in Rome. When you hear the phrase in verse 6:17, "The great day of his wrath has come," we have been told this describes the day of the Lord at the end of this age. Such is not the case, for throughout biblical history there have been many days of the Lord, which fulfilled prophesied judgments by the Almighty. Some examples was the judgment of the 10 northern tribes from approximately 721 to 675 BC. And then the house of Judah experienced his wrath and was taken into captivity to Babylon in approximately 604 to 587 BC. And also the second temple would also fall under judgment in 175 BC, and again in 70 AD. Each of these events could easily have classified as the day of his great wrath. The sixth seal actually describes a glorious time when Father not only answered the prayers of the saints, but vindicated their blood and stopped the persecutions for a season. In 313 AD, Constantine issued the Edict of Milan, which brought religious freedom to all the Roman Empire, including the Nazarenes. No doubt, Father used Constantine to bring judgment on Rome's pagan rulers, and there was no place for them to hide. Constantine became a great emperor, and Rome had the opportunity to repent. But as we shall see, they did not. The original four who constituted the Tetrarchy were Diocletian, Galerius, Maximian, and Constantus, father of Constantine, who died in battle in 306, just 6 years before his son Constantine would succeed him to the throne and would overthrow the pagan Roman Empire. Maximian hanged himself like Judas. Galerius, tormented by remorse, died slowly of a horrible disease. Diocletian went insane and died in 313 AD, the very year that Constantine declared the Edict of Milan. Thus did the wrath of the Lamb come to pass upon the pagan Roman Empire, the persecutor of his people. And just as surely shall his righteous judgments fall on today's persecuting political and religious systems of government that try to curse his chosen covenant people. I'm Bill Sanford, trying to put the book of Revelation in proper perspective in our day.